birds. Winged creatures, not necessarily impressive on their own, but they're free to fly wherever, whenever, always. You might not think so, but you and birds are rather similar. I see your wings. They're beautiful. I bet they've flown everywhere you could ever imagine across the world, painlessly, maybe even back home. I remember when I had wings like those too. I remember when everyone in my family did. But that was long ago, 2 decades ago to be exact. That was when us Venezuelans' wings were not just taken away from us, but they were torn out of our bodies, shredded, stepped on, and left to decay. As we were left in the soil so far removed from what we grew up in, left with poverty, a crippling economy, and an incompetent government. You hear tales of murders daily, robberies spanning entire neighborhoods, neighborhoods dealing with an 81.4 out of 100,000 homicide rate, homicides of people being paid an average of $13 a month, enough to buy a hot dog, maybe a burger, children starving at school, passing out, barely being able to scrape through a couple of courses on weekdays. Of course Venezuelans want to flee. Their country has become a living hell. Just because they can't fly, it doesn't mean they won't run. Over 2.2 million Venezuelans have left their country, begging their way into Colombia, the US, and Canada. Colombia has seen the worst of it, with over 330,000 people emigrating in the past 6 months, many of which are left homeless, jobless, and unsupported. The country living next door to them is treating them like aliens, as if our history doesn't go back millennia, as if the percentage of Venezuelans living abroad hasn't increased by over 2,000%. The number of Venezuelan refugees has increased from 6,221 to over 4 million in 11 years, the largest mass immigration in recent South American history. And where do those 4 million people go? To countries which don't accept them. Countries which shove them to the side, deprioritize them. I understand the necessity for taking care of your own country and your people, but when our dire situation is so blatantly obvious, how could you simply turn a blind eye? These refugees are not treated respectfully either. Around a year ago, 1,200 refugees in Brazil were forced into refugee camps where their safety was jeopardized and they were forced to live confined, claustrophobic lives. They were then mistreated further, having the entire camp raided and destroyed by local city people, having all their food and belongings stolen, defacing the home they were trying to build. How is it that people who so gracefully flaunt their wings wherever they go have the right to take them away from those in desperate need? When was the last time you allowed someone who was clearly suffering to just pass by? Back when we had wings, we helped you too. Throughout the entire 20th century, Venezuela was a haven for people of all ethnicities. Europeans, Arabs, and Americans all fled to the country, forming its recent history. Going back to the Spanish Civil War and World War II, millions of Italians, Spaniards, French, and British people came to Venezuela as refugees, and they were accepted. No, not just accepted, but embraced. For a more recent example, look at the conflicts in Chile, Colombia, and Bolivia, in which their corrupt governments during the 70s and 80s left them seeking refuge. And where did they go? Venezuela. It breaks my heart seeing how trapped we are, seeing how when we try to flee, we're unwelcomed, how even when we go to these countries whose people we cared for, were shunned or deemed unqualified for jobs. How would you feel if after you finally felt free and got a stable job, you were only met with insults and hostility? Life for us Venezuelans is not easy, but all 4 million of us will fight for our survival. While we run wherever we're going, I implore you to reach out to us, to form refugee camps with proper security and access to health care, to allow for Venezuelans to get easy access to counseling, to grant equal chances for them to acquire jobs and schooling, to treat us with the respect we treated your refugees with, to reach out your hand and to help rebuild our lives. Please continue to accept these refugees. Allow your wings to shield and protect us, so that one day we can grow back the ones we've lost. Thank you.